Okay. I think we're live. I want to make sure we confirm or deny it. Forever hold your peace. What do you think? Are we live? Should maybe I should have had it already set up and ready to go. I say we are, and we
All
are.
right.
I just wanted to make sure we are,
And we're
guys.
live.
Yeah, and we're live. Okay, that first 10 seconds doesn't count, guys. In three, two, one, and we're back. Hey guys, it's Chris. We're talking through the meetings, and I am here with a special guest host with me. It is the one and only Vaga. You know her from all of that TikTok fame. Hey girl, what's going on?
Yo, yo.
How
Is
you
that what I
doing?
say? I don't know what I do on the internet. Hi, guys.
How you
I
doing?
think that's what they say on YouTube. Hi,
I
guys.
like, you know what? I don't think I planned this, but I like the way you're like a little off center to the right or the left, and
I had to bring in Grogu.
you
I
got the
mean,
Groger right there,
he's like my emotional support alien.
right? I got your at right there in the top. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, I do.
So
Thank you. That looks great.
all right. So, okay. No, for all of us here talking to the medias that don't know who you are, let's give you. I'm gonna give you the stage real quick. Just briefly introduce yourself, and then we're gonna get into what we came to do with this little WandaVision pre-show. It's Theory Thursday, guys. But first,
Theory.
let's talk to Vaga and see what she is all about. The stage is yours. What is up?
Awesome. Thank you. Well, welcome everyone to this live stream. I was really proud to be invited over here. My name is Vaga Bondage, and I do everything from cosplay to read comic books to drive boats to explore the world. But of course, we're in the COVID era right now, so most of my life has been existing in a little 10 by 10 box of my square tiny apartment. So with that, of course, I like to escape just like everybody else does, and I've done that through comic books and the new show WandaVision on Disney Plus, and that has been a huge relief to me. It has finally something to stretch my brain. If you've been watching this show, I'm sure you can appreciate as well.
Oh yeah.
The show itself is a bit of a mystery, but I was always a huge fan of the showrunner, Jack Schaefer. From back in 2009, she produced a show called Timer, and that really captured me. And when I heard that she was being brought on through Marvel by writing the scripts for Black Widow and then WandaVision, I was immediately hooked. And it's been really fun to try to unravel her mind and that of the entire writing team, as well as the director, Matt Shakman, and explore the world of WandaVision, which you guys know from the MCU and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So glad to be here, glad to talk about it. And let's try and figure out what's happening before they just give us the answers.
Right. Not only do you talk about it, you be about it because okay guys, I found Vaga Bondage on TikTok, and the very first one I was doing like a collage of like WandaVision theories, and I posted it on this channel, and I found my favorite ones, and then when I was finished with that video, because I'm sure you're gonna be like, hey, I didn't see mine on there.
Yeah.
You didn't, because it was after I was already done. I still had the search, on my phone, and it was still up there. So I refreshed it and I found one of yours. And after I watched it, I was so pissed because I immediately said, I should have, with your permission, I would have reached out to you first. I should have made my whole collage every video you did because everyone blew my mind. She comes right at you on the phone. Okay, guys, let's throw this up the flagpole and see if anybody salutes it. Okay, hold on. What? It felt like I was watching like what's the comedian's name? Kevin Hart. We're like, okay. How about this? How about this? Wanda isn't really one. I mean, it kept blowing my mind every time because you dove deep. And you talked about the comic books. You talked about you talked about the movies, but mostly you kept it on the comic books, and it just that level of detail always impresses me because I pretend like I'm a nerd. I'm a geek. I actually can draw. I draw comic books. I used to do that back in the day and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I got my collection. I'm a big fan. I'm a comic book guy. But every time I meet a real comic book fan, like Jack Kirby has this. I mean, with knowing all I'm so bad with names and things like that. So I feel like I'm letting a lot of people down.
You really don't have to be. And that's part of my sort of shtick when it comes to the Marvel universe and to being a nerd and into comic books at all, is that there is no right level of nerdiness. You can have just watched your first movie. You could have just sat down and watched your first episode of WandaVision, and that's the first introduction to the entire MCU, to any comic book. If that's the first thing you've ever seen and you love it, you're a comic book fan, okay? Or you're a nerd. You can appreciate it. You don't have to necessarily designate yourself like a real nerd. Nobody should. And in fact, if people say that you're not a real nerd, they're gatekeepers, and you give them my number and I will go and talk to them for you, because I just don't understand why that should happen. I think fandoms are for everybody, and that's really what I'm passionate about. So what I try to do through my TikToks is explore these worlds in an avenue that feels safe for everyone in the fandom, and that they can give their interpretations of what they've seen in the show, and we can collaborate together to try and imagine what could possibly be coming down the line later on.
And guys, I mean, if you think that the mystery behind the show and the what's going on inside the hex is a mystery wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in another mystery, an enigma, if you will, I'm telling you, go follow. If you have TikTok, follow Vaga Bondage on TikTok. I'm telling you, the theories are real, and that's what we're about to get into. So without further ado, let's. I had a great conversation before we went live, guys. We were just gabbing back and forth. So I already feel like I've been talking to my friend since we've been friends since pre-K. That's just bad. She's been like that since the 3rd grade. That girl crazy. So so we're gonna get into.
She is crazy. She is crazy. And right now her brain is full of quantum mechanics. So I don't know if I'm going to be as articulate as I would like to be, but I will do the very best that I can in explaining what I think is going to happen. And as a disclaimer, let me just say, by no means am I going to be right. I will have ideas, but I do not know what is going to happen.
You think you will be, like by the time I air after WandaVision airs, when I do my debunked, you think you will be debunked? You think all your theories? I'm pretty sure you've hit the nail on the head with some of your theories. If you want, can you share some of what is your theory that you're working on now? What do you have right now that you're working on?
The big one that I've been investigating today has to do with the actual science that's being alluded to within the show. Through Dr. Darcy Lewis, we've been introduced to the concept of CMBR, or cosmic microwave background radiation. Okay. Now that is a real thing that scientists in today are exploring. And it has a lot to do with quantum mechanics, and also the theory of, I'm going to bite my tongue for saying this, the multiverse. Oh, I know. It's a theory that you have heard 100,000 times, and it's one that on my TikToks, I actually actively try to avoid. And the reason behind that is it's just something that's all over the internet at the moment.
So you're not a fan of the multiverse that they're trying to introduce?
I wouldn't say that I'm not a fan of the multiverse. I just I disagree with saying it's the multiverse and then leaving it at that.
But that's the best way to answer the question. You just it's the multiverse. You know, that's ends all arguments.
It's absolutely true. But the reason I'm going to defend it now is because there is scientific backing behind it, and it has to do with you even brought it up. I love that. Cosmic microwave background radiation is relic radiation dating back to the Big Bang, as Hayward points out in the show. But it's how scientists are able to investigate and come to the relative agreement that the universe is constantly expanding. It has to do with wavelength, energy. It's a very long story, and I am not the person qualified to really tell you all about it.
You're more qualified than I am. I'm going to let you know right now.
But what I will say is that through that theory, if we correlate it to what the comic books tell us of characters like Wanda and Monica, then there's some really fun theories to explore within that. In the comics, Wanda Wanda's powers are to manipulate
Reality.
probability.
Oh, probability.
Not probability.
Okay.
The difference is that when it comes to theory of reality within quantum mechanics, the idea of the multiverse, that's where it comes from. Except we don't call it that in science. We call it the many worlds interpretation. Okay. The many worlds interpretation.
Isn't that a fancy word of way of saying multiverse?
Exactly, and that's what comics are famous for, is taking something that's so broad and vast and then just dumbing it down to one sort of key phrase that the media can take and roll with.
It's got to pop. It's got to pop. You can't call it. You couldn't call it global warming because that didn't roll off the tongue, right? They had to change it. Didn't they have to change from global warming?
Yeah, they had to brand it, rebrand. You know, people need catchy catchphrases that can stick in your brain. And multiverse is super fun to say, but the all worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics and how the theory of relativity has to do with probability, and that probability is a factor that is always being brought into an equation, but we have no way of scientifically proving it at this point, is a really big mouthful.
So from what I'm gathering, what you're talking about, the whole idea of probability, for example, if I would just use a movie reference, like I remember Nicolas Cage's movie called Next, where he could kind of predict he could kind of see the future a little bit, and could, if I go right, what will happen to me? If I go around this corner, if I go left, what will happen? And he could see it, like the way Doctor Strange could see all those different types of. So you're talking about the probability of, you know. And okay, so so are you saying that these other worlds are invented? Like, instead of, if I woke up this morning, I put my red shoes on and went out to work, that's one universe. But if I woke up that morning and put my blue shoes on, that I created a whole new world. Is that what we're talking about here?
That is definitely what we're talking about. Now the question is, in terms of modern day science, is whether or not that number of worlds is infinite or if it's finite. And that's just a question that we don't have an answer to in science today.
Do you believe? It might be, what do I
believe? I don't think that the difference of me putting my left sock on versus my right sock on first is going to make a difference in the terms of the universe. But in larger cases of making large choices in the world, I think that those will definitely have different impacts. And one of my favorite series to explore that theory through is His Dark Materials, which was a show that was on HBO not too long ago, starring Lin-Manuel Miranda and the girl who played, I can't remember her name right now, but the girl who played X-23 in Logan.
Who is also rumored to be could possibly come back if they go certain directions. But
who knows?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I mean, we'll see what happens in the multiverse. But in the book series of His Dark Materials, they go a lot more into the evolution of mankind, basically. If these the butterfly effect, if you will. Right. If something happens earlier down in the timeline, then what branches will shoot off of that? So we've heard all this before in multiple facets of media and television and comic books and just fan theories in general. So I don't need to get too big into the multiverse concept because it is a very grand concept, when there are smaller predictions that we can try and look at and see if these will make a grander difference in the way that the show unfolds.
So with the multiverse, and that leads into the whole with the multiverse of madness.
Yes.
Let's bring it back to the show. Do you believe that Wanda will be the villain in that movie, or a target? At least, because the last we saw Doctor Strange, his villain was like, no, there's too many wizards in the world. He wants to get rid. Do you think Wanda is making so much noise that she might become a target that maybe Doctor Strange might have to protect because she's doing some witchcraft and she looks like a witch to that villain? Or is she
I really like
the
way that you said that, because I think that it's something that Doctor Strange will definitely get on his radar. But let's remember that Doctor Strange is not all-knowing either. Even within the MCU, he contradicts himself because he keeps a list of people that he believes are a danger to the reality that he's protecting. But he had no idea who Thanos was when the Hulk was being blasted down from the world of, I'm forgetting it right now, when he left the devil's anus there and and got projected out of Thor Ragnarok. You may recall he blasted into the stairs of Doctor Strange. He said Thanos was coming, and
Doctor Strange
Strange had no idea. Like, who's that? Say again, one more time. So yeah, that's Doctor Strange doesn't know all. He's not omniscient.
Omnipotent.
Omnipotent. Thank you.
Hey, I'm probably saying it wrong. I'm real bad, but I mean, it took him. It takes. I guess it took him a while to buffer and see all those. It was. You know what? You're right. I never thought of it like that. How he went into that trance. He was seeing all these probabilities and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So you're saying that you were able to do that, but you couldn't predict Thanos' arrival before all that stuff happened. I mean, like, right. Unless he was going to be like, well, that was the very first time I ever tried that. So I mean, I guess, but yeah, I never thought of it like that. You're right. It does kind of contradict himself.
Because as Doctor Strange, he has an idea. He has an outcome that he's looking for. Much like us, we're looking for a theory. Mm-hmm. So if we have this broad scope, this idea in mind, we can then go back and we can look at the evidence that's going to lead to that possibility.
Right.
If that makes any sense. So Doctor Strange knew what he wanted from an outcome, but he had to take millions of avenues to figure out the only possible way to get there. It's like having this huge labyrinth in front of you and taking millions of different wrong turns before you finally found your way to the center. And that's how I'm picturing Doctor Strange's vision of looking into the future.
Okay.
Now, Wanda, however, has the ability to manipulate probability. So whether or not that means she can have an outcome that she's looking for, or if she can project an outcome that she wants and then have the image come up later on. And I think that's where we're kind of phasing in with this show, because now that we've had a closer look at the energy field, as Monica Rambeau describes it, we saw Wanda in episode 5. She came out, she had that interaction with Hayward and with Sword, and then she went back in. But before she re-entered, there's kind of two different phases of it. There was this green, blue, and red pattern, much like a television screen's pixels, or this sort of rainbow-esque look. And then she puts on this second layer of what we're going to guess is her hex magic,
right?
What we've seen so far through the MCU.
Do you think that's going to stick, the word hex? Because that's what her power is called, right? It's called
yeah, in the comics it's called her hex magic.
Yeah. You think she's
that was technically her mutant ability before she learned sorcery from Agatha Harkness.
Mutants. Do you think this is the avenue that's going to introduce mutants?
I don't think so.
What's your theories on that?
I would love to be debunked. You can pick that and be like, Vega says there won't be mutants in WandaVision, and then it'll be like, debunked.
I'm making it on my list right now. So this is the first one. All right, no mutants. You see what I did there? No mutants.
I do think that mutants will come in later down the line.
Oh, of course.
If I had to guess, I think that we're going to start to see the Easter eggs of those being planted in the Eternals movie later this year in November when that comes out.
We got a question coming in. Victor Messer asks, episode 6, it's released when? It's going to be released, that's tonight.
Midnight tonight in
Pacific Standard Time.
Pacific Standard Time. So whatever that is for you in your time zone, Victor.
Or wherever you are. Pacific Standard Time. It's midnight. Or what was that, 4 a.m. Eastern?
I think it's 3 a.m.
3 a.m. Eastern, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
3 a.m. Eastern, 2 a.m. here where I'm at, Central Standard. Wow. And I'm gonna stay up. I'm gonna watch it. You said you're gonna watch it too, and
I'm a night owl. I'll be here.
You're gonna live stream. I think
I'll be live streaming beforehand, but when it comes down to showtime, I'm hyper focus mode, and I can't control live streams, and I don't like people to see my reactions because I get very frantic.
Let me guess. You seem like the kind of person that would be. Do you cover your mouth? Do you do that?
I have many years of training through service and hospitality that when I get surprised, I become more stoic than anything. So I'm not very. Yeah, I get frantic in my brain, but I don't project very well.
But outside, you're just calm.
I'm just like, oh my God. Like, if you were to see me, it would just look like she's having like an aneurysm or something. I wouldn't be moving. I'd just be
Like
glazed.
they'd be like, is she okay? You're good. She's fine. Leave her alone. She's focused.
Hello, are you okay there?
I heard a theory about let's see. Let me see if I can go down my list here. The Mind Stone. The Mind Stone is well, all the theories, all the stones were sentient, that they were self-aware, and the Mind Stone is trying to communicate and trying to come back. And when I first heard this theory, I thought, well, maybe it's because Loki took it when they altered history and he kind of made his little great escape. But then I was like, well, that would still be an alternate universe or alternate to Loki. He wouldn't technically be the Loki here.
We're definitely going to get to explore in the Loki series. That's going to be coming down the line. We don't have to talk about that, but they've already shown within the previews for that show, the TVA, which is the I'm forgetting the acronym for it right now, the Time Variable Association or something like that. I'm a terrible nerd. See? Varying levels of nerdiness.
What do you think? What do you think about that theory, though? What about the mind? It's the Mind Stone being, because they communicated with the Mind Stone, and I believe, was it Civil War or was it Infinity, where Vision was like, the Mind Stone.
The way that Vision communicates, and he kind of self-analyzes himself.
So do you think that might be what's going on?
Personally, no. I think it has more to do with, I mean, if we're talking about the status of the Infinity Stones, they have been reduced down to atoms, as Thanos explained at the beginning of Endworld, right before Thor chopped his head off. So that's fine, because that means that they're available still on an atomic level. In the world, in science, in everything, energy does not disappear. Everything can be reformed, but energy does not just disappear. So those particles, those atoms, are still out there in the universe. Now, theoretically, they could be reformed, and I know a lot of people are kind of hoping for that, because that would make sense to them, as if the Infinity Stones just came back into being. Personally, I don't want that to happen. I think it's kind of a cop-out for the MC world to be like, oh, well, the Infinity Stones are gone, and then we bring them right back.
Right. So you don't want to see the Mind Stone come back or anything like that?
Not in that shape or form. What I would prefer to see is the exploration with cosmic background radiation that we've already talked about within the show, and how that energy is always there. It's always in the background of everything we do, everything in the universe. And that's what the Infinity Stones were essentially formed of. Now, this is going to be like a long story, so I don't want to go into it too far. But basically, back before time, before man, before anything, before existence, the universe was basically this cosmic mush of, it was a plasma technically, in this orange hue of nothingness. And it was just because the Big Bang happened, everything exploded, everything was too hot that protons and neutrons couldn't create atoms. They were too hot. But as time went on, like billions and billions of years, that was able to spread out, expand, and cool down.
Okay.
As it cooled down, then those atoms were able to form together and become particles of matter. And at the same time, so existed antimatter. And so for every particle of antimatter and matter we had, they came together and they canceled out. And from what we know now in the universe, what we think we know at least, is that what we have left is matter, that there was, for some reason, more matter than antimatter that was created in the Big Bang. And what we have left is what we're experiencing day-to-day life. And then over time, those were able to cool down further and further into systems, into planets, and eventually human beings and things like that, organisms.
So what you're saying is mutants.
Mutants, definitely. What I love about Marvel is that they will try and explain real science in the best way that they can. They've done this through every show that they've possibly been able to, with Doctor Strange especially, where basically they say that magic is just science that we don't understand yet.
They did that with Thor. I think it started with Thor, and then they really dove into it with like Doctor Strange and everything. And
And so
that's
yeah,
probably.
sorry, continue.
I'm sorry. That's fine. I mean, if that's the way their universe, the logic of their universe works. But it was kind of killed the whole fun. So Santa Claus is just a scientist. Oh man, that's
Definitely. Yeah, I've been to his laboratory once or twice.
what 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 on your like what is another one of your theories? Because I can't remember the majority of your
Right.
TikToks, but
No, that's
you've
okay.
come up
There's
with a
so
lot
many
of
of
them.
them.
What's
I do, because I mean, that's the science behind it. If you can understand the science behind it, that's fine, but that doesn't answer all the questions of how the show is going to
mm,
progress, let alone how it's going to tie into Multiverse of Madness and
mhm.
Spider-Man. For that, we need to have antagonists and protagonists. And so your original question was actually whether or not I thought Wanda was going to be a villain. And I honestly don't. I think that the concept of a villain in this show might not even come to fruition. The reason I say this is because our showrunner Jack Schaefer has said on record that she doesn't believe in the good versus evil concept. She thinks that
Mhm.
there's always gray area in the middle, and that she wants to teach her children and the next generation about that possibility, that good and bad are a matter of perspective.
Right.
To put that into a parallel that other kids might understand, if you know the Broadway musical Wicked, which is the story of the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz. In Wizard of Oz, we saw her. She was the Elphaba, the evil witch. She was green skinned. Everybody hated her. The Munchkins were like, boo, Wicked Witch of the West. But in Wicked, the play and the book, she's the protagonist. And we can see from her perspective why she is doing things and the reasons behind that. And you start to emote towards her, and you understand that maybe she was in the right the whole time. Dorothy becomes the villain, and it really just matters on what side of the spectrum you're looking at. So
Hmm.
I think with WandaVision, we're going to get that not just with Wanda's character, but also with Hayward's character, and maybe even Monica. Everyone's, with the exception of Jimmy Woo and Darcy, who are just going to be the sweethearts of the show no matter where you put them. We're going to unfold these layers of characters that will show both good and bad, and we'll have kind of the Civil War debate for the next 50 years of who did you side with. And it doesn't really matter, because no one's right, no one's wrong. It just depends
It's,
on what you believe in.
you're from that Star Wars phrase, from a certain point of view.
Hmm.
Another theory: the children. Do
The
you?
children.
Here's my working theory:
Okay.
the beekeeper guy, the guy who turned into the beekeeper.
Right. Or Agent Franklin.
Okay, yeah, Agent Franklin. Okay. When the rope went in, it turned into an old school like jump rope looking thing. Things get changed. I believe it's one of my working theories because I don't want to believe that because she can't create in the hex. She can only like make things, change to fit what she
Exactly.
what
You
you
can manipulate the matter as it is.
Exactly. So I don't want to believe that she took a bunch of kids and made her kids. I want to believe that she took him and made her kids, and that's why we haven't seen him anymore. Because I know she loves Vision and all that stuff. I know all, but Vision can't give her children. So what if she took him and the little, I'll just say, the testicular fortitude needed from him and used that to impregnate herself, and he's now gone. Like what?
Yeah,
What do you think about that
concept. I like that. I really like it a lot. It's fun. Oh no, my battery's getting low.
one?
Sorry, that's my bad. But I really enjoy that train of thought. I don't necessarily know that that's what's going to happen, because Agent Franklin is a sentient being. So then what would happen to his consciousness? And we'd have to start explaining that entire avenue. And I don't know that Disney is prepared to start going into
That might be a little too dark for Disney.
Well, I mean, they did just put out Soul, so I don't know that that's necessarily supposed to be a precursor to WandaVision, but it does expand on the concept of consciousness and human emotion versus our brains and the matter that we live within.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's absolutely anything possible. I like the theory. It is yet to be foreseen.
Yeah,
And I would feel so bad for poor Agent Franklin and his family if he never comes back. People are gonna wonder.
I'm sure they won't like go into the whole birds and bees concept of it. Just like you took this person and turned them into two people, and I don't think
sure? Because birds and bees have been a massive symbol throughout the series.
I mean, he was a beekeeper. I mean, all right, let's you want to talk about the birds and bees? There's also
been images in the background that if you're just not looking at those little things, but there's so many little statues of bees, birds, pictures on the wall, the metal framework at the top of the kitchen. Yeah, that's all that imagery that we've been seeing. So the question is whether or not that was being planted there to subconsciously encourage Wanda to have children, or if there's going to be a second meaning behind it.
Everybody's talking about Pietro.
Yeah, okay. Pietro.
Do you think this is the Pietro from the Fox Marvel universe?
I know that it's intended to be, and I don't know that means it's going to be a mutant in the future. So Jack Schaefer recently had an interview with Marvel.com to talk about Pietro because so many people were so curious. And she basically said that it took a lot of work for them to get that Quicksilver. They wanted to bring on Evan Peters, and they had to do a lot of convincing. It was not supposed to be, they wanted it in the original storyline. They thought it would be sort of a fun distraction, I think. But they really had to convince Kevin Feige that it should come to play out that way. So I don't know necessarily that it's going to have an effect on the overall storyline. I think the writer's room basically just thought, wouldn't this fuck with their minds?
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up Kevin Feige, because it's only because of him that I know that this is not that Quicksilver. If anything, if there's a big bad besides Wanda that's pulling the strings, is messing with Wanda and everything like that, and we're going into this multiverse of madness, I'm thinking, okay, maybe the big bad himself, if it's Mephisto or not, is thinking, okay, what can I do to get this person back in line, because things are starting to unravel. Her brother is a good source to probably keep her in check, but her brother's dead. I just can't make him out of nothing. So what's the next best thing? If my theory is that the big bad, whoever the big bad is already aware of, or is trying to start this whole opening the doors between the multiverse thing. And he used every ounce of energy he could to find the nearest doppelganger Quicksilver he can find that's still alive and that could mess with Wanda's head. And I'm not saying that this is that Quicksilver, but maybe the big bad just made himself look like that Quicksilver.
But that wouldn't make sense to Wanda, because if you were going to try and bring in something to appease Wanda specifically, why not just transform yourself
into that Quicksilver,
the brother that she would be experiencing? This character had to tell her who he was. She had no idea.
Exactly.
So there's no point in doing this for a comfort setting. I've heard many theories that the boys, basically, because Wiccan, one of her sons, has the same powers as Wanda, essentially, that he could have brought some idea of Uncle Quicksilver to the door to try and make his mother happy. I don't know.
That doesn't explain why when she was talking to Rambeau about her brother, I had a brother, and then when she's talking to the boys, I have a brother. That never made sense to me. Why would she tell one person in the past tense and then her son's in the present tense, and then boom, he shows up? So that kind of makes me think it's her doing it, or my next theory.
Okay.
That there's not really physically two Wandas, but mentally two Wandas. That she's
mentally two. I was just going to say the same thing.
I think she's suffering from a split personality.
Oh, okay. I do it on the opposite. Not necessarily the madness part, which I love, but I'm actually going the multiverse direction with this same theory, that we have two levels of consciousness living within one physical form, and that those are two versions of Wanda, or two versions of history that just happen to be living in a parallel dimension.
Wouldn't that almost be the same thing? I have a feeling that would piss off a bunch of people that know people or are suffering from that illness. Like, you can't tell me that the reason why I have multiple personalities is because of a multiverse. I feel like that would anger people, but it would be a good storyline.
But at the same time, I mean, I've had this conversation when it comes to mental health as well. Mm-hmm. But I often believe that people who are experiencing sort of these
multiple personalities
these forms of what humans consider mental illnesses, that they may very well be accessing just a different plane of existence that we're not there. But that's a totally different conversation.
And you know what, that might be exactly how they explain it. Like, it is two Wandas, but it's because she keeps tapping into her evil version of herself on this world, and she's tapping into the sweet version of herself. And it's not just that might be an interesting way to explain it. It's not just that she's suffering from this disorder. She's literally tapping into these multiverses, and they're all using her as a vessel. They're coming here through her. And that's a movie. That's a movie.
Yeah. It's actually already a TV show. I'm not sure if you've seen Legion before. I highly recommend it. It was a Fox TV show. Legion, for those who don't know, in the comic books, is the son of Professor X. Mm-hmm. And he, like Wanda, has reality warping powers, but he's also got a split personality disorder. He has literally like dozens of himself living within his brain. And each of them has
Doom Patrol,
different facets of powers that they can control. And so within his mind,
mm-hmm.
That's why he's called Legion. We are Legion.
Because we are Legion. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think Doom Patrol has a similar character like that.
I think so. I haven't watched Doom Patrol yet, but
there's a girl. She used to be on the Orange is the New Black series, and she has the exact same power. She has multiple personality disorder, but in each personality has a power. Very interesting. I mean, that could explain why in a split second she always, she shifts. She's playing the game. We're in the 50s, we're in the 60s, we're in the 70s, and then
but for that exact reason, I don't think it's what's going to happen because it's already been in several other shows. I don't think Marvel would go that route. They do not like to repeat themselves or to repeat other people.
They are literally repeating themselves right now. The I Love Lucy thing.
That's referencing though. That's a different story. And now we're going to go back to CMBR and how it relates specifically to television. Mm-hmm. So in the old TV shows, not even shows, in old televisions, we always remember Channel 3, switch it on, and it's just a static mess.
Right.
Now that is essentially interference of different microwaves and different forms of interference from the planet Earth, but as well as from the universe as a whole. I think someone did the math, and it was less than 1% of it is actually CMBR, but that's essentially what static noise is.
Okay.
It's this background information that we can't really perceive yet because we just haven't evolved to perceive it. But in old televisions, what they would do is they would pass microwaves up through different filters, colored filters, red, green, and blue. And then depending on how much light and what frequencies of light are being emitted, the human eye perceives it as different colors. That's how televisions work. Now, red, green, and blue, each basically small section of that's known as a pixel. We see those all the time. They're different now in digital formats versus the analog technology that we used to deal with. But that red, green, and blue, have we already talked about this? I feel like I'm repeating myself today. Is the force field, the energy field that we see
on the town, on Westview. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That is true.
I think what we're looking at is just a giant television, an old CRT television that they're not calling a TV because it's not trying to project a show, but it is in a different way. So I think if we're going to have a big bad, it's going to be a technologically Earth-based, maybe Shatari-based, maybe Kree-based. It could be some sort of alien race,
Mysterio
alien technology. It could be Mysterio. He's already done that with Barf, and he's supposed to be showing up in about 7 months. But will it be Mysterio? Will it be those people? So that's definitely another avenue that we could explore.
I feel like the sound dun dun dun
dun dun dun
should have been put in there.
Could be Mysterio.
Everybody keeps bringing up Barf. I saw one TikTok video where they say if you look if you look at the force of the hex, it does this. It has this bluish. It's more blue.
They're calling it blue. If you look close enough, it's the same
blue.
Red, blue, and green color pattern that we see at the end of the credits. The way
Right.
that's
what I noticed. But people are saying that it's the same color pattern that Barf used with that technology, and I'm like, maybe, because they're saying because Wanda's powers are red. Whenever she uses her power, it's red. So this guy was like, I don't believe that it's Wanda really doing the force field and everything, because
you know what else
are blue.
was red in the MCU though? Sorry to interrupt, but you know what else was red is in Iron Man 3 when AIM got involved and they were like souping up humans and trying to evolve into the biggest species. No one ever remembers this movie because it was like the Christmas special of the MCU. But if you go back and you watch it, Killian was turning people into, they couldn't call them mutants at the time, but he was essentially trying to create this next evolution of human being that was able to regenerate limbs, but sometimes it was involatile and they would explode. So that happened, and I don't think they ever went back and talked about how Gwyneth Paltrow is essentially a superhuman now. So I'm not sure. I mean, Iron Man at the end of that movie said he'd fix it, but Gwyneth Paltrow had powers, so...
I forgot about that. You're right. That was the Christmas special of the MCU.
Yeah, it really was. I just rewatched it and it blew my mind. I'm like, okay. So disregard everything you want to say about Red. If we're talking that all of the MCU is canon and we have to keep that in mind, then Wanda's red reality forming powers have been expanded in other facets of the MCU already. So that's a possibility that you might have to consider.
Okay. Now it's time to let's predict the future.
Okay.
It's been mentioned that there will be a Luke Skywalker level event for the Mandalorian cameo coming soon. Do you believe that was Pietro, or do you believe it hasn't happened yet? And who do you think it will be?
Who do I think it will be, and who do I want it to be are two different questions.
Who do you want it to be?
Who do I want it to be is Sir Ian McKellen, because Magneto, and yay, super happy X-Men nerd. Obviously, that's what I want.
Sir Ian McKellen as Magneto is claiming to be her father just from another reality, or just there just because.
Either of those.
I don't care as long as he's there.
Yeah, one of those. Who do I think it will be? I think it might be Kelsey Grammer.
I have never there you go. That's why I needed to invite you. You are the first person to ever, well, maybe not the first person to say it, but the first person I've ever heard say that. Why? Let's dive into this.
Kelsey Grammer played the Beast in the X-Men movies, so he could theoretically come on as Dr. Hank McCoy. He was in Cheers and Frasier. That was his whole shtick. I'm fairly certain that I've heard Paul Bettany say on record that he is a huge fan of Cheers. So if Kelsey Grammer showed up, and then just due to the reactions that we've heard from Paul Bettany saying, hey, I think, or I was really excited to work with this person, I've always wanted to work with them. Yeah, Kelsey Grammer would be a legend just like that. That would be up in his mind. So that's my fingers crossed.
Damn it! Now because I can see it because of the whole thing with Sword and everything.
I mean, if that's what's going to happen, he could easily come on as Monica's aerospace engineer. That could be a way that they bring him in.
So Beast, Hank McCoy, because Kevin Feige has always said that he had a 5-year plan that's already set, and even though Disney has acquired Fox a couple of years ago, it's still not we're still not there yet. I think it's 1 or 2 years left for when we can start really expecting some Fox stuff to be introduced, or what previously was.
I don't think that we're going to get Dr. Reed Richards in yet with the Fantastic Four. I think that's still,
I think they're going to premiere that in the movie.
Down the way.
Yeah, that's the movie. But even though we're technically, based on the timeline, we're technically a year or a year and a half away from when Kevin Feige said he was ready to start introducing the Fox, what was previously the Fox stuff. He still was convinced to allow the casting for Pietro for the last episode. So if we were strictly following Kevin Feige's orders, we would not have had that casting. But he did it. No. He allowed it. So You just blew my damn mind with that Hank McCoy thing. So, and now, damn it, now, but here's the question. Will it be, will he come from the MCU? Okay, so let's just pretend like the Hex is bottling up the Fox universe and everything outside of the Hex is the MCU. Will he come from the MCU side or will he come from within the Hex?
I think if he was to appear, we would see him just in his human form, and that most audience members wouldn't even recognize him as the Beast. He would just be
Hank McCoy.
Kelsey Grammer, Dr.
McCoy.
Might not even be Hank McCoy. This could just be an alternate reality version of him. Again, it could just be one of those cameos that they put in to F with the minds.
Well, they're going to have to give him a name. So are you saying
what name are they going to give him?
Yeah, so that's what I'm asking. Like, are you saying that they wouldn't call him Hank McCoy or they would?
I don't know. I want them to call him Hank McCoy. That would be the only way that it would make sense. But that, again, I don't know necessarily that's going to be the case.
Theory,
and the reason behind it, because here's my evidence though, that I don't know if it'll be him either. The smile that Monica gives when she thinks, I know just the person, and she goes to text her aerospace engineer who's going to be coming down theoretically to build this 10,000 pound fallout shelter for her to try and penetrate the force field with. Whoever she's smiling about, she's got a close relationship with them. So I don't know necessarily that it's going to be Dr. Hank McCoy. Could be, but I don't know. Unless they project him as the doctor, like the friend. In the comics, Monica Rambeau got her powers because she ended up on a Roxxon vessel because of this experimental, it's a long story, but there's this experimental multi-world energy source, and the doctor behind that was a close family friend of Monica Rambeau's father. Okay. So if Dr. Hank McCoy, or if Kelsey Grammer comes on and he's not Dr. Hank McCoy, there is potential that he could be this doctor friend of the family that Monica has known because of her father.
It's almost better that you're right. It would be better that he would be a doctor, but not technically Dr. Hank McCoy, just somebody to just kind of throw us for a loop like with Pietro, because Kevin Feige has said that we're going to start using X-Men sometime in the future, but the page is turned and the book is pretty much closed on the whole Fox Marvel era. So you're right. It wouldn't make sense because then we would be tethered to the previous X-Men movie. You're right.
Exactly.
And the only
character, call it like a gift to the fandom. Like, sorry, X-Men's over. It's not going to happen in the future, but here's like a consolation prize. Yeah.
The only tether to the old X-Men is Deadpool. And after that is Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I think those are the only two characters that Kevin Feige would be willing to tap for this MCU. Other than that, I don't think. Maybe Cable.
James McAvoy and
I honestly would recast McAvoy and Fassbender for them and just retcon their whole past, but that's me. Unless they decide to go,
I would watch them forever,
right?
For sure.
Unless they decide to change the whole history of Magneto and everything and just recast him.
Side note: if you need a James McAvoy fix, he's also in the His Dark Materials series that I was talking about earlier. Okay. So definitely worth a watch. You haven't seen it yet.
Okay. So we got a Hank McCoy theory in there. I'm gonna say that's probably a likely of a debunk. I don't think that's gonna happen, but. All right, we're a couple hours away from WandaVision, and it is up there. Who else? Okay, here's another one. Here's another question.
Yeah.
Monica Rambeau. Does she already have her powers or not?
I think she's already got her powers.
I don't think so.
I just made a TikTok the other day. I think she even got them 2009, Iron Man 1, the end of the movie, Pepper Potts overloads Stark's arc reactor, giant explosion, boom into the sky. I think Monica Rambeau was probably up on maybe her first astronaut mission, and random out of nowhere energy field comes, hits her, and that's how she gets her powers. That's my out there theory.
Powers that would mimic Captain Marvel, whose powers come from an Infinity Stone?
Her powers come from an energy blast. They were technically from an Infinity Stone, but the arc reactor was supposed to be the next new wave of technology. And at
Right.
the same time, we don't know what she could theoretically be exploring in space, if she was exploring some sort of interdimensional tear at that point, and these two energies collided, and then she just happened to be in the middle. It's like it's like a textbook comic book backstory.
Man,
So it makes sense to me.
that no, you're really going. I mean, hey, if that little boy that was wearing the Iron Man mask and was about to get disintegrated by that robot in Iron Man 2 was actually Tom Holland's Peter Parker, then I guess anything's possible. I'll if they say that's what it was, then that's what it was. I'll buy that.
I hadn't actually heard that theory before, and now that you said it, I love it. I have like goosebumps. Like,
wait, you've never heard that?
No, that was the first time I've heard that one.
That's canon. That they have officially said that little boy that was standing up to that robot in Iron Man 2 was Tom Holland. I love it. I mean, originally, of course, because they did that before they even knew they were ever going to get Spider-Man. Of course, originally it wasn't Peter Parker, right. But after they had Peter Parker and did that movie, then they decided to say, that's Peter Parker. We've now decided to because we can just throw that in. You can't really prove it. He was wearing a mask, blah, blah, blah. But they retconned it, and they officially said, yeah, that's Peter Parker.
See, and that's where it comes in with varying degrees of nerdiness. There's no like right or wrong level. For the things that I know, there are hundreds of people who know completely different things. And that's where nerd culture requires collaboration for us to be able to come up with these theories.
And I should have said this in the beginning of the live show. There's a couple of guys watching us live. If you guys have theories and everything, send them in, type them in, and we'll discuss them right here. But because there's so many out there. Is there any more that you have or that you've heard?
Some sort of more of the wild ones that I've put out there. I would love to see, if they were going to be bringing in the X-Men universe, I would love to see them bring in Mr. Sinister. Because
they were supposed to do that after the last movie.
They were supposed to do it with Logan. They alluded to it in Deadpool 2. They alluded to it in the New Mutants.
They alluded to
I would just love it
X-Men
to bring
Phoenix.
in some Essex Corp. Maybe Essex Corp is the people who are behind the scientific side of our theories. Maybe that's what's generating this giant television field. Maybe they're experimenting on children to try and create the next wave of humanity. Yeah,
for the children. One Adam Holmes said earlier, for the children. Do you think that Wanda is the reason why in the next Spider-Man movie that the whole thing about missing children and things like that? Do you think that will be because of Wanda? That will be the tie-in. Okay, better question. Just like in the House of M or whichever comic book it was, when she said no more mutants, do you think she probably won't say no more mutants, but she probably
I don't think it's going to be the opposite of House of M. I think if you really think that theory through, it doesn't make sense, because why would Wanda say, I want mutants, I want magical things? If she could make a wish, snap her fingers, and have something come out of this, she's not going to say, I want there to be an entire world where everyone has magical abilities. I never
considered that. Instead of no more, why doesn't she just say more? Or
she could. I mean, I've seen videos making this statement, or people in my comments love to say, I think it's going to be opposite of House of M, and they'll all magically come back or come into the world. But I don't think that there's a need for that. I think they already exist, and I would really like to see Marvel explore different avenues of the MCU that we already have seen. I don't know that they will, but I think that they could easily do it through flashbacks like they did at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy. Yes. All they have to do is put a little timestamp that says 1993, and we see something that happened in a different part of the world. Exactly. In 2009, we only saw the rich white man side of what was going down there as Stark got kidnapped in Afghanistan, and the 10 rings were holding him captive, and all that side of things. They won't be doing this with Ms. Marvel, but I would have really liked it if I think we're going to see it in the Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings movie that'll be coming out later this year, I think it's later this year, maybe July. That we'll start to see a different side of what happened in that phase 1 timeline.
I like that whole opposite of the the House of
Rich
M
white man life, yeah.
and the
Like opposite of House of M.
House of M, the whole, I kind of like that theory.
Right.
I never thought of that. Instead of, why does she have to say no more of ... Why can't she just say more, or more mutants or something like that?
But I don't want her to. I think they're already there. I think the Eternals is going to go more into the history of that, and so we can put that down on the list. If we were to be pinned up against each other about which theory is going to be debunked, you can say that you think it'll be opposite House of M, and I'm personally saying it will be not that.
Opposite. I'm gonna write it down. Opposite House of M. Okay. Here's another theory that I had back in the day. Going back to the Beekeeper. I thought he was a sword agent. I even wrote it in my blog about this. Go to www.t3medias.com.
He's a sword agent.
Not the Beekeeper. I'm sorry. Pietro. I think Pietro is a sword agent. Because they literally in that same episode they were talking about if everything that goes into the hex gets changed to fit the narrative or whatever is going on at the time. So if you go, if you bring a modern cell phone into the hex, and we're in the 80s, and it's going to turn into a cell phone from the 80s. So how do we go into the hex without being manipulated or changed? Well, what if we go in when they were testing Monica Rambeau's bulletproof vest that got changed into some 70s outfits and stuff. Yeah. They said, well, what if we already go in there already wearing stuff that fits the narrative?
Yeah.
And then the alarms go off. They say that at first they said that the alarms meant something was coming out. I believe whenever the perimeter is breached, going in or going out, the alarms go off. I
100% agree with you.
I think that is a sword agent undercover, and they're testing the theory. He went in wearing the clothes. It didn't change, and maybe he had something protecting him. And he didn't change, so he's manipulating her and pretending to be her brother and hoping that she would just buy it and to see what would happen. What do you think?
I'm 100% there with you. I honestly believe that he was sent in by Hayward. And that we will see him try and manipulate Wanda in the way that Hayward wants it. So I don't know necessarily that he is a sword-specific agent or that he is working for Hayward in whatever shady means Hayward's is trying to,
Now, here's my other.
There's still a lot of questions around him.
Here's the second thing about that theory.
Yeah.
What happens to Pietro, or fake Pietro, if he is a sword agent undercover, when Wanda finds out? She's already slipping into some madness now. What would you do? Okay, here's the thing. You do cosplay. You're Wanda. Yeah. You're Wanda. I just show up at your front door. I don't look like the brother you remember, but it's the hex. Anything's possible. It's me. Come and give your big brother a hug to death. Come on, sis. And then later you find out I'm a sword agent. I was just fucking with you. What happens next?
I don't think we have to guess. I think we've already seen it. She did the exact same thing to Geraldine. Monica got boosted through 4 walls and then right into the sword camp all over again. So that was how we were first able to reveal that. But if she's just going to start piling up some bodies out there, I mean, it's just kind of telling the same story over and over again. So
I think if my theory is correct and he's undercover and he is found out later, which he probably will be.
Right.
My theory, Rambeau got off lucky and got off light. No, a fate worse than death. Something's gonna happen to him.
We're gonna find out soon, man. We're gonna find out soon. Unfortunately, my battery's starting to low down, so I might have to zoom off here or charge it back in. But it really depends on.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh well, that's a good place to end it off, guys. Those were our theories. We're going to be heading to WandaVision in a couple of hours. So all of our theories that we came out there, go check out Vaga Bondage page on TikTok and check out her theories and everything that she's and go follow her. She's got more than a little bit out there. And let's close the show real quick then and head to WandaVision that's coming in a couple hours. Remind us, guys, where we can find you online if you don't mind. Let's close the show.
So I'm on TikTok, definitely. On there you can find me Vaga Bondage Babe. all one word. And on Instagram, I'm Vaga Bondage Official. Sorry, my unilateral branding is not right there. But through either of those, you'll be able to find my links and you can come check me out. All my different links bring kind of different facets of my personality to the internet. So I guess you'll just have to come and see.
And you guys, you know me. I'm Chris, and I mean, if you're coming to this channel, if you're not a member, if you're not a subscriber, please think about hitting the subscribe button. Definitely follow Vaga Bondage on TikTok and all of her social media. She, like I said, she knows a lot about a little and a little about a lot of things, but what she does know will blow your freaking mind, guys. She's awesome. And I appreciate you for taking the time out and talking.
I appreciate you, Chris. This was so much fun.
I will definitely invite you on the show again, maybe as our official comic book expert and a quantum physics expert whenever we'll
find out. It only takes like a couple lines of dialogue for me to be completely wrong.
Right? Debunked. Boom.
Dun, dun.
Guys, WandaVision is coming up in a couple hours. Go check out Vaga Bondage's TikTok. She's going to be going live on her TikTok before the show. And then after that, at 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then I will also